In terms of shaping organizational structure, culture, to shape organizational culture wouldn't be as impactful as being able to say, worked with CEOs to improve net promoter scores by double digits or 10% in 12 months for a 300-person tech company. Similarly, implementing effective processes and facilitating substantial growth. Substantial is subjective, 30% year-over-year growth is objective. So I would have a think about, what life cycles, what cycles in the business have you experienced as it relates to growth metrics, revenue, employee growth, net promoter, all of those things. Demonstrated leadership in navigating a complex merger. I think like demonstrated leadership is just like a little bit, I'd rather you just said navigated complex is subjective, okay? Demonstrated leadership, unnecessary. Complex, someone might view that merger, someone that's maybe done like billion-dollar mergers might look at a $300 million or whatever million-dollar merger and think that's really simple and easy. So complex is subjective, but if you can say something like navigating a $300 million merger between two public organizations, two organizations with 5,000 plus employees each, that tells me more. It doesn't matter if I'm an HR coordinator or just like someone like a junior recruiter or CEO, I will understand I can picture or understand a little bit better a $300 million merger between 10,000 employees than simply saying complex merger. Okay, moving on to the actual bullet points. In terms of here, okay, join lead feeder at HR in their expansion. So expansion could mean many different things. I'd recommend expansion. It could be markets, it could be revenue, it could be locations, it could be employees, it could be products portfolio. So maybe just like, mentioning rather than saying expansion in, achieving 30% year-over-year growth. So you can mention it here because this is like a summary section. So you can mention it again if you want. Distinct working styles, but again, I would also put navigated, just past tense. You'd want to put supported, fostered, because the role has finished. So navigated a X figure merger in X months, X year. Okay, supporting two teams of over X thousand employees, X hundred employees. Then that's kind of like, again, bringing in some of those metrics. Support a global team of executive managers and team members across 40 countries. Is this a team of 10? Is it a team of 40? Is it a team of 200? So being specific about that. Manage all US operations and employee lifecycle benefits, mobility, payroll. This is fine. When their team comprised of 25 members. So maybe what the total was. I'm guessing you helped grow it. So if it's, I don't know if you grew it from 25 to 40 people or 25 to 250 people, in which case you 10x growth. So maybe adding that in as well. And then you can, if you want, just as an easy metric, put in like handling over $4 million in payroll. If you really want to get more specific, handling $4 million in payroll, maintain a 98 or 99.9% accuracy rate across 4 years. Or 6 years. So you've got a lot there that I think that I would normally see from an HR professional that isn't there. So being able to bring those in would be really helpful. I would get rid of this because like we've already talked about culture. You've already mentioned the merger. This is the third time that the merger was mentioned. The exception being is, and I mentioned it below, okay, a successful merger to me is when you can retain your team and also maintain or improve NPS. So those would be metrics. So rather than say a successful merger, facilitate a merger while maintaining a 70 above 80% retention rate and 86% net promoter score. That is far more impactful. Moving on to the key achievements, this is a little bit longer than I intended, but there's some good stuff here. The key achievements, one of the things that I noticed the first is there's not a single metric here, so it's not really an achievement without a metric, with the exception being 40 countries, is the only metric here. So just like be a little bit mindful of that, and that's more scope than it is like an increase or an action. So keep that in mind. Employee onboarding and offboarding aspects. In 6 years, how many people during your tenure did you onboard? Again, I don't know if you onboarded to 50 people or 250 people. So that context would be helpful. Essential for ISO certification. Did you get ISO certification? If so, in what time frame? Or you can just say maintained it. HR tools. HR tools is vague, whereas if you said evaluation and integration of Workday, Bamboo HR and ABC benefits or QuickBooks payroll or whatever payroll systems there are, that would be getting specific, but also be able to drop in a technical skill, which may be searched for. Here I would get rid of this. They were just like not super strong, and I would expect this from an HR person anyway. So anything that is like a given, I wouldn't recommend putting in there. Supported recruitment efforts to grow from X to Y in X time frame would be far more impactful. Okay, supported recruitment efforts and conducted over 100 interviews for the following roles. Okay, you're broadening your skill set, broadening your experience by having these types of metrics and the information. Manage contract creation and offer letters, significantly reducing turnaround times. Significantly, again, subjective, whereas if you said reducing turnaround times from 5 days to under 24 hours, that would be objective. I think these were a little bit vague, and typically for HR, there's a couple other things that I'd like to bring up. Retention turnover. obviously pre and post acquisition, and then also one of the top HR metrics that I've only seen in about 1% of profiles is average revenue per employee. If you can say supported HR, and as the organization grew from $50,000, or sorry, grew average, sorry, if you said something like grew or supported the organization and grew average revenue per employee from 50,000 to 125,000, that would be really helpful. So how you would do that is, what was the revenue at 25 team members and at its peak, or when you left, or specifically for the deal front, maybe if that was like the longest tenure, if you grew to 200 employees and you had 100 million in revenue, what was the average revenue? That particular metric speaks very, very well to CEOs, business leaders that typically see HR as a cost. You then go from tactical in managing HR to strategic and looking at increasing average revenue per employee. That is what I would say like as a top 1% HR metric.